we're going to be talking about the fact that it seems that government regulators or state regulators, TDEC, I believe is a Tennessee department. Let me get the title right here real quick. Let me switch over and we're going to get started here for real. Let a few more people get online. All right, let me turn my phone down. Make sure you're sharing the truth. That's what I'm trying to do with you all so you can protect you and your family and friends. That way if a lead battery plant ever decides that they can start dumping 1,000 pounds, and I don't care what TDEC says. TDEC stands for Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. So we're going to be talking about their, in essence, what I would consider their lies, and our subcommittee lies, the committee lies, and they lie because they say it's nothing to worry about, but the research says otherwise. And it is so frustrating and infuriating that this would happen in the town, which, mind you, folks, and what I'm going to do is, again, I'm trying to bring you this truth, this information, and the research available to you so you can make good public health decisions for yourself. You can come up and stand against the people that are going to sit here and pollute our environment. And the reality is in the future, I'll be doing more videos on this subject over the next week because it seems we've got about a week. The 26th, next week, there is going to be a public hearing on this, meeting with the committee members at 2 p.m. If you type in TWD in the comments on Facebook, you'll get the links to all the research studies as well as the petition I am begging people to sign immediately. But I'm begging everybody to show up in person if you're here locally to Clarksville, Montgomery County. Let's get there. Let's take a stand. Let's not allow them to pollute our environment more than what's already been taking place. Mind you, again, this stuff I'll talk about in a future episode, but mind you, Clarksville was voted the 24th out of 50, 24th most toxic city to live in the U.S. Along with that, we have the #1 highest mercury pollution center electric power plant, let's call it, well, but I like to call it right now mercury polluter, because they have measures that could be taken to reduce that. I don't know, it's been several years ago that they brought about the information that there's a top mercury polluter. And guess what, folks? I don't believe the committee or TDEC is taking into account when they take these permits and say how much lead can be pushed or pumped out into the atmosphere in the surrounding community, how much lead. Yeah, it's not of concern until it's 10,000 pounds. 10,000 pounds of anything is quite a bit to me. And when it comes to one of the most toxic substances known to man right now, that is very difficult to chelate and remove from the body, and as you'll find out in the research I'm going to be reviewing here in this video right now to point out the lies of TDEC and our committee members when they say there's nothing to worry. You'll see the research says there is no safe level whatsoever, and on top of that, future videos I'll be putting out talking about the synergistic negative effects of things like mercury and lead combined. Guess what? This community has more mercury being put into the Cumberland River from our power plant than any other power plant out there. So folks, we need to take a massive stand against this because I have friends that live out there near the industrial park and their children matter to me. Their children definitely matter to them. Even lives that have no clue that I even exist still matter to me because they're human life. They're human lives. They're children of God. They're God's children, and they matter to me. It doesn't seem like they matter. 200 jobs and a bunch of money. I guarantee if we dug deep enough, we would find that the hands of some of our local public officials, committee members are probably getting stuffed right now with dollar bills, y'all, going in the hands. I'm extremely frustrated about this entire, and I have to joke when I'm frustrated because otherwise I just get really angry. So, again, bring this truth. Here is the petition where we're 1,400 signatures so far. News was not brought about. I didn't know about this till last week. I don't pay attention to the news. It rots your brain. It's not TV. It's the news that's on TV that will rot your brain. But the sad thing is, I didn't know about it. I want you to pay attention. Atlas battery plant to open in Clarksville facility and bring and create new jobs. 200 jobs. I want people to have a place to work. Absolutely. I want people to make a living. But not at the expense of our children, the brains of our children. Their cognitive intelligence levels. Folks, that's all going to be harmed and damaged. It's a fact. If they dump 1 pound, it could harm a child. If they dump 1,000 pounds, they're definitely killing people and harming children. If they're dumping 10,000 or more, which we don't even know how much they're going to dump. Because according to TDEC and the negotiation between the battery plant and we're going to go through that in a sec, they asked and promised, quote unquote promised, that they would not go over 1,000. So the TDEC, I guess, is going to allow them not to have monitoring systems in place. But here's what Governor Haslam, he says, we are proud to welcome Atlas Battery to our state and thank the company for as the next location to poison its residents. No, it doesn't actually say that. It should, and kill people from cardiovascular disease and cause brain damage to our children. We're proud that they're coming to do that in our community. I'm not. Again, TWD, if you want the links to the articles of the research that I'm going to be covering and citing here, because I'm going to bring you the truth. When our public officials won't. That's what the Wild Doc's about. As a location for its first U.S. manufacturing facility. So here in the petition, here are some notes. Again, I'm having to do this through hearsay and people that have done the research for me. All right, this petition notes that Atlas Battery requested not to install an industry-recommended ambient lead monitor, which it would help the public to ensure the Atlas Battery is not exceeding allowed lead and toxic particulate emission rates. Because Atlas Battery promised, quote, promised not to exceed 1,000 pounds of lead emissions per year, TDEC has agreed that, and they're supposed to be protecting our environment, creating a safe environment for us to raise our children in. They promised that it's kind of like Monsanto. You know, glyphosate, you know, now that we find out that the EPA was colluding with Monsanto to hide the fact, kind of like doctors and cigarette companies, kind of like medical physicians, the medical community, and government officials with the opioid manufacturers. They said they were safe. They said they didn't cause cancer. They said they weren't addictive. We believed them, and guess what happened? People died as a result of taking the promises of people who are standing to make massive sums of money. Unacceptable. Has agreed that Atlas does not need to install this monitor. Another note, Atlas Battery first proposed to emit no more than 0.24 tons of lead per year, but nearly doubled that to 0.47 tons of lead per year after, folks, after. They let them change the allowable amount after TDEC closed public comment. So I have gotten word from one of my friends that they're in communication with the local mayor here. They're saying that this is a done deal, that this plant is coming to town. There's really nothing they can do about it as long as they pay TDEC for the permits. So as long as they pay for permits, they're coming to town. So they get to pay TDEC, so TDEC gets to make money on them. So as long as they pay for these permits, they're coming to town. There's really nothing can be done. Which majority of people I've spoken with had no idea this was even coming to town. They kept it a secret. I wonder why. So the proponents contend, so the pro-lead, what's up? Everything good?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just high.
All right, it's just high because I'm yelling, right? I'm sorry, I'm yelling. I'm yelling because children's lives matter. I don't understand why people don't lie more than what they do. How in the world this is allowed to happen? When something comes to our community, you better darn well make sure that the public knows about it, that the families know about it. People who live out there didn't even know about it. Until you get this big old sign, banner saying, "Welcome to Clarksville, Atlas Battery. We're excited you're coming to poison our children." They said, again, they promised not to exceed the inflated high emissions limits set by TDEC, that residents have nothing to worry about. So if TDEC is saying nothing to worry about, and what I read in another article, it was the committee members that voted to allow this company to come to town to produce 200 jobs. They said there's nothing to worry about. So let's look at the actual science. Now I want to remind you folks that back when I reviewed, let me go back since some of you are just now getting with me here. Atlas Battery, April 4th, 2018, they announced it. Hey, guess what? Atlas Battery's coming to town. So it's ironic to me that they're saying it's safe. They announced it, and March 14th, 2018, Medscape, actually, MedPage Today, I'm sorry, low-level lead exposure overlooked in cardiovascular mortality. Our public health officials overlooked that lead is causing people to die early. Oh, this study was published March 12th, 2018, reported in MedPage 2000. Did I say 2014? I don't know. Anyways, March 12th, 2018. Published in MedPage, March 14, 2018, no exposure threshold can be considered safe, researchers say. Oh, I thought you said you were proud it's coming to town. Oh, I thought they're saying it's safe. They're lying to us if they're saying that. The research proves there is no safe lead level exposure. And the community and the members and the children in that community out there, especially those downwind of that place, deserve to know the truth and be protected and not have in their backyard where their children are going to be playing a company that is polluting the environment and poisoning their children. Folks, let's go through the research. Let's show you the truth. So the population, when looking at a population, the fraction of the population who's dying, they said which would equivalent, the equivalent is 412,000 deaths annually are contributed to lead exposure. They say an additional 412,000 deaths would be attributed to lead exposure. So they're estimating in the study how many. They say the low level of, so the interpretation of the study, low level environmental lead exposure, low level is an important but largely overlooked by our committee members who probably get in the pockets. I don't know, and that's a claim I can't really make. So I'm making sure that everyone knows here. I'm not saying that they got bought off. I'm not saying that. But what I'll tell you right now is if they're saying it's safe, that is a lie. There is no safe level of exposure, period. So stop lying to people. And the fact that they're doing deals behind closed doors after public comment is closed, the deal's off. Hashtag the deal's off. No battery plant. Low-level environment lead exposure, largely overlooked. Risk factor for cardiovascular disease and mortality in the United States. A comprehensive strategy to prevent deaths. This is my strategy, getting the truth out there. That's what I do. Comprehensive strategy to prevent deaths from cardiovascular disease should include efforts to reduce lead exposure. Another study prior to that, at low levels below the 0.488 micromoles per liter, which was 10 micrograms per deciliter in adults, was even harmful. So the study highlights here, we identified a direct association between higher blood levels. If you want these studies, I want to remind you, if you want these research studies in hand to take to our government officials and show them that they were lying to us, and tell them they're lying to us, and tell them to stop it. They may be good people, but the reality is they were deceived if they didn't know that this research was available. If they didn't know this research was available within less than a month prior to bringing this battery plant to our town, guess what? If they didn't know, it's not their fault. But now they better do things to change and stop our children from being harmed and people from dying early from heart disease. People are not going to reach their God-given health potential because this battery plant would be in our backyard. Unacceptable. We identified a direct association between higher blood concentrations and mortality, substantially lower blood lead levels than reported. So at substantially lower levels than previously reported, it was still deadly. The association detected provides new evidence of adverse impact of lead at levels that are still considered by many to be acceptable. Still considered by many to be acceptable, but they're saying those levels are outdated. That research was outdated, but we're still using it. Unacceptable, particularly for adults. Now, we'll go over children here in a minute. The health effects of current lead levels on adult populations, however, are not viewed as a pressing public health matter. TWD in the comments right now, you get a link to all the research references, all the articles, and to the petition, and I pray and beg you to sign it. Folks, this is what I'm doing. I'm giving you the research and evidence as quickly as I possibly can. I've read through it, I've got it, but don't just take my word for it. Go and confirm what I'm telling you. In an effort to make sure that I'm giving you and presenting you the truth and pointing out others' lies, I'm making sure that I'm bringing you the research firsthand, and that's why I read it to you rather than give my opinion of it. The present study in conjunction with the previous data indicates that the perception that it's safe at the levels currently permitted. So as long as they get the outdated permits, TDEC is saying, get that, folks. They're saying TDEC and a mayor locally told a friend of mine that it's a done deal. It's signed as long as they get the permits. They're outdated permits. Unacceptable. So perception may be erroneous, idiotic in my opinion, that acceptable blood lead levels in adults need further investigation. They need further investigation into the results, and the further investigation was done and again published in Lancet 2018, March, 1 month prior to them announcing to the public, hey, we've already made the deal, battery plant is going to put lead into your environment and harm your children and kill people. Among the adults, and this is no joke, if one person dies, they killed somebody. If one child doesn't make the grades in school and get to live their cognitive potential to the fullest, that is a harm by this lead battery factory, period. And the words and mouths of those who allowed this to go into, go forward, they're at fault of this. And we'll talk about what I feel we should do if they're going to allow this to happen. Environmental lead exposure and children's cognitive function. Again, another peer-reviewed medical study at Cornell University. Recent research has substantially increased knowledge about the effects of low-level lead exposure on children's neurodevelopmental or neurobehavioral development. Taken as a whole, these studies suggest that there is no, let me emphasize this, no safe lead exposure for our young children. Yet the committee or TDEC, whoever said it's nothing to worry about, are lying to us. They need to be out of their positions immediately because they lied. You get caught lying, you better fess up, say, whoop, because here's what, I would be perfectly fine with this happening. They're probably going to be pissed at me for calling them liars. I don't care. If they're saying it's safe while the research says it's not, then they're lying. Folks, I'm reading you the research because that is what we have to go off of, and that is what TDEC, that is what our committee members should be looking at. There is no safe level of exposure, period. If we expose our children to lead, they will have cognitive developmental problems. Mental health problems, cardiovascular problems, kidney and endocrine or hormonal problems. That's what the research says. Folks, there is no safe level, but although small, these effects are enduring and possibly permanent. Lead adversely affects nearly every system in the human body, appears to be particularly harmful to the developing nervous system. That would be our children, unborn children especially. Widely accepted that lead exposure at levels that do not produce overt symptoms immediately, symptoms large enough to be like, wow, that's immediate, can cause subtle and possibly permanent damage to the children's cognitive function as they grow and develop. So more than a decade ago, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control actually kind of tried to do their job. They identified lead poisoning as one of the most, this is a quote from the CDC, one of the most common and preventable pediatric health problems. Yet somehow committee members and TDEC thinks it's just fine to put a battery lead plant that'll produce 1,000 pounds per year. That's a lot of lead. 1,000 pounds of lead per year being pumped into our atmosphere, affecting our children. More than a decade ago, they said it was one of the biggest public health problems, or one of the most common. The report also noted that no existing studies provide evidence for any sort of threshold blood lead concentration below which the effects are non-existent. So basically they said, there's no evidence showing there's any safety level whatsoever. So how are they coming up with these permit levels? We'll permit you to do that, but you promised us you would only do that. But we're not going to even make you monitor it, so we have no clue. What I say the public does right now, sample your soil, have a bone test if you wanted the cumulative levels to be checked, and then do blood tests regularly to check how much lead's in your system. And if this battery plant comes to town and you find that your lead level is going up and your soil lead level is going up every year, guess what? Turn around and sue their rear ends. Because they lied to us. Because that will negatively affect you and your family and your children. That's the way we can do something in the future, but I don't even want that to have to be needed to be done. That should not be needed. Evidence that very low levels of exposure adversely affects the neurobehavioral development of a child is consistent and quite strong. So the evidence is quite strong. Now I'm showing you the evidence that makes it quite strong that we can sit here and say the committee, when they said, or TDEC, when they said it's safe, they're liars. The results suggest that there are small to modest size effects of lead exposure across a 0 to 10 micrograms per deciliter. That is lower than what they say is safe, thus the permits are outdated. I'm going to remind you of that as many times as I possibly can in this video broadcast, which is entirely below the currently accepted CDC and World Health Organization levels of concern. So they're not concerned, it seems. The evidence shows and research shows that they're not concerned about the science showing that the lead levels that they're allowing children to be exposed to will cause them not to reach their God-given cognitive capabilities. unacceptable in my opinion. Give me a heart, give me a thumbs up if you agree with me. Going on, again, if you want the research links, the studies for yourself to take them and put them in the hands of your public health officials in the future if you ever have to battle the same thing and you're out of the community. But if you're locally community, please stand up with me. All right, we're going to have details about where you can be and during the public meetings on this. Again, 2 p.m. on the 26th and 6 p.m. on the 26th. That's next week, Wednesday. So I think I was right here. It is discouraging, I agree, that the amount of exposure needed to produce measurable adverse effects on children's cognitive functioning appears to be extremely low, and that these effects appear to persist at least into early adolescence. If you want these research studies, TWD right now in the comments. This affirms, they go on, they say this affirms that pediatric lead toxicity is an extremely preventable problem, and that by working to provide children with safer housing, freedom from exposure to industrial emissions. The research right there, folks, says it. We need to fight for our freedom, not to have our children exposed to industrial pollutants. I'm fighting it. I hope you'll fight with me. TWD in the comments on Facebook if you want the links to the research studies. The lead gasoline would be, thank God for you. I mean, think about this, folks. Even when it's in paint, and literally you have to sand it, you have to grind it, you have to peel it, you have to eat it, you have to lick it. You know what? It's like, I just can't help. Here's my brain. Here's squirrel. Squirrel. There goes that squirrel in the office again. Snozberries taste like snozberries. The lead paint tastes like lead paint. Luckily, they actually said no more lead paint. Actually, we're lucky they said no more leaded gasoline. Why are we going back in time and now going to expose our children to more lead toxicity and pollution? Again, by continued efforts at a public education, this is what you're getting right here, not from our public health committees that are supposed to be protecting us, And again, I know I'm sarcastic. I know I'm wearing a funny hat. I know I'm being kind of belligerent and getting angry, but I don't know why people aren't. Like, this is unacceptable. Our committee members should have been walking door to door and saying, do you want me to vote to bring 200 jobs to Clarksville at the expense of the cognitive abilities of our children in our community? Are you okay with us bringing 200 jobs when thousands of people will then die earlier as a result of this? Are you okay with that? That's what they should have been saying. They should have been reading this research. If they haven't, I forgive them. If they do now and then say no more to this and do whatever they have to stop that lead battery plant from coming to town. All right, developing countries. Reducing its unnecessary use, it is possible to remove lead exposure as a factor that limits children's opportunities to reach their full God-given potential. Now, it doesn't say God-given, but I know that God wants the full potential to be seen of His children. And the reality is that will not be achieved. That will be squashed. That will be hindered. That will be harmed if we allow this lead battery plant to come to town. TWD in the comments if you want the research. And here's what I'm going to say we do now. If it is true that it doesn't matter, they get these outdated permits and levels, and they pay for their permits, and they come to town, they start exposing our children. Here's what everybody in the community needs to do. Check the lead levels. Have your lead levels tested in your soil and in your home and in your own body. Your lead levels in your blood. Bone is most specific to a cumulative exposure because that's typically the worst, but blood is another one. And then if you see your blood levels go up once the battery plant is there and operational, and you start seeing it go up, you start suing as soon as you start feeling negative effects. As soon as you get cardiovascular disease, when before that lead battery plant was there, you didn't have that, you sue them. I hope you don't die, I hope you aren't harmed, but the reality is, if that day comes, if they allow that day to come, then I say we take them to court. Folks, Flint water crisis deaths. Michigan Health Director Nick Lyon, it's funny that his name is Lyon, because he was lying. Do you guys, hey, are you paying attention to me? I'm sorry, my staff are back there. I think this is ironic, and I want some laughter. His name is Nick Lyon. He's a lion. He's been a lion to everybody. That is so ironic. It was right there in his name the whole time. They should have never voted a lion son of a gun. Faces manslaughter charges. Why? Because he was lying. I hope this should be and manslaughter of neglect, so he'll get less years for, like, if you took a knife and killed somebody. Here's the reality. What I feel we should do, the committee members and the TDEC, they better be ready to be taken to court for premeditated murder. Because if they knew this stuff, and they allowed it, and they had premeditated, orchestrated this lead battery factory coming to town and were telling people they didn't need to worry, then tore down public comment opportunities and said no more comment, let's do deals behind the backs of the public now. So they did more deals to allow for more lead exposure, more pollution to take place after they took down public comment. Well, that right there is premeditated neglect and murder. They need more life, more days and years in prison if that day comes. God, I pray it doesn't. I pray that these people see this video and say, wow, he's got some points there. I was never shown. Because our committee members, they may be very good people, and I pray and hope they are. But I also pray that whatever is necessary to stop them, if they're not if they're getting paid off, if they're evil people, if they're wrongdoing, if they have bad intentions, if they just don't care about the science and research that's being presented to them right now, I hope God stops them in any way necessary. I pray for that. So I pray against their actions right now, but I also pray that their hearts be open, their minds be cleared to see the evidence and research that was literally published a month before they announced this battery plant to come to town that said it's going to kill people, and there is no safe level, none. 1 month prior to saying we're going to pollute the environment with lead, Science Lancet says there is no safe level. Unacceptable. I pray they have a change of heart and they do whatever necessary to protect our children and our community and not allow this battery plant to come to town. Now, am I sitting here saying, we should never, we need science, we need progression, we need more jobs? No. Let's just figure out a place where we could put it where it's not going to be around within 100 miles or a short distance from massive communities. A massive community, a massive subdivision where my friends live. People are going to move. Their property value is going to go down because that battery plant would come to town. Unacceptable. They're going to harm and cost people their lives and their money and their health, their quality of life, their health, as a desire to bring 200 jobs to town. Unacceptable, folks, and they ignored the research. Or they didn't know about it. Again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe they just didn't know about it. Maybe TDEC, whose job it is to protect the environment, just didn't know about the current research available to us. Maybe the Wild Doc did, but they didn't. Maybe you ought to vote me. I will run for these committees. I don't care, vote me into anyone you want. I'll go serve where the community wants me to serve. Because that's what I do as the Wild Doc. That's what I do with this video series and these videos. Through my Facebook, through my office, I heal people and help them be healthy and recover from harms of our big government, of our local industry plants. I help them detox. So I could be sitting here being silent and say, well, children have neurodevelopmental delays and problems, cognitive problems. Well, I help a lot with that through nutritional, through functional medicine approaches or the wellness way approach. Beyond functional medicine, with chiropractic, so I could help them. So if more sick people are in my community, I'll make more money. I could be silent on that and just say, you know what, I'll get more money in the future, so I won't say anything right now. I won't open my mouth to show people the truth, to try and prevent them from ever becoming ill and needing my help. Folks, that's what doctors should be doing. Why aren't the doctors speaking out like this? Why isn't the public health department locally? Oh, I know, because they don't care. Again, I don't know if they do or not, but according to their actions regarding science and research in other realms, it seems they don't care. I don't see them speaking up against the exposure of our children to lead. They're ignoring the research. Anyone that sits here and says, this is safe. As you can say, I'm pretty frustrated and pissed off right now because I know family, I got friends, I got people that live in this community that matter. They should matter to these committee members. They matter to TDEC. Please don't do this. I'm going to say please and ask nicely one time. I guess I should have done that first before I got all riled up. But the reality is when they're sitting here saying it's a done deal and no more public comment anymore, and as long as they get their permits, my comment and my begging doesn't matter. And I've seen it. It doesn't. Our begging and our questions and our desires and our pretty pleases don't matter. Seems that money matters, and that's it. So we need to shut these committees down. We need to kick them out of their positions, out of their chairs, and take them over. I'm ready to go. Guys, fight with me. If you want the links to all the research and the articles that I just talked about, type TWD into the comments right now. You'll get all of those links. You'll get the research studies firsthand. You can go and read them yourselves. You'll get the link to the petition. Please sign the petition. If in the future you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribing here on my YouTube channel, getting more information in the future to protect you and your families. Make sure that I did everything. Again, you know, I was even ready to bring, did they take into account, I guarantee they didn't, the other research studies that I'll be going through in the near future regarding synergistic toxicity effects of zinc, lead, mercury, and guess what? We have a toxic link plant out there. We have hand-cooked that is already in violation multiple times and nothing's been done about their violations. And when they get fined, when they're in violation, that means they're harming the community around them. Is the community members close and downwind of those factories when they pollute the air with lead and these chemicals? Are they getting the money? No. I want to know where that money goes. Who's it going to? How's the cleanup happening? If they violate a permit and they pollute too much, you better darn well see that our government officials make sure that it goes in the hands of our community members, the children's parents, so that they can begin chelating and detoxifying. Which again, I'll make more money, I guess, so I should keep my mouth shut. But the reality is, I don't see that money going to the people who are going to be harmed. It's going to go back into government hands. And the government's going to get to do whatever they want with it. It's a big business opportunity for them. That's all they see it as, it seems. So again, like the Facebook page, subscribe on YouTube, support the Wild Doc, get your health straight. Let's stop giving money to big corporations like Big Pharma so that you can help me fight against these big corporations that seem to be buying off our government. I'm going to go to YouTube or Facebook here real quick and look at some of the questions and comments starting from the bottom up. DNA is affected big time by lead. Absolutely. It affects every single. Angie says, Bible, the sins of the forefathers followed down to the third and fourth generations. Lead exposure is, in a sense, I think where it follows generations. Frozen and no sound, Kristen says, I apologize for this stuff. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Not sure what I missed, but I'll watch it in full later, Ginger says. Angie puts a link on there, TWD if you want. Again, some people commenting TWD to get the links to the research studies that I talked about so you can see it firsthand. Ginger says, allopathic physicians are bought. You're the real deal. We need 1 million more like you. My wife would probably argue different on that because she thinks I'm kind of a little crazy at times. No, I'm just kidding. She loves me. But, you know, the world would be kind of, I don't know. I get you. I get you, Ginger. We need more people standing up. I get it. I appreciate the love. I would be livid, Sherry says. I am too. You're too nice, Sherry says. Probably in regards to how I'm trying to be nice, but also angered by the fact that this thing is being allowed to come to town. Jacques says, premeditated, there you go. Not predetermined murder, premeditated murder. You know, if they're charging this guy with premeditated or manslaughter by neglect because he didn't tell people the truth, well, they haven't told us the truth. If they said it's nothing to worry about, the research says otherwise, they're lying to us. So therefore, if their lies are the result in people in that lead plant coming to town and people dying early because of it, they murdered somebody. That's my opinion on it. Doc says, you got it, man. Maria, I still can't read more during it, I guess. Angie says, hauled off the entire top 5 feet of the soil in Kellogg, Idaho to repair the effects that they uncovered. My grandma died when she was only 50 years old due to the mental health effects of lead, Angie says. Somebody's commenting. Make sure that you're sharing this video, getting more people this information. Please, please hit the share button right now. Love your personality, Sherry says. I appreciate that, guys. I've gotten a lot of comments, lots of prayers. I appreciate all. It's all about the Benjamins, dollar bills, y'all, because that's, who cares about a child's mental cognitive capabilities? Any lead exposure at all is going to negatively affect them, but, it's safe. Don't worry about it. Don't worry your children won't achieve as much as they possibly could had we not exposed them to lead. At least we got 200 jobs to Clarksville, right? Todd says, truth will be set you free. That's what I'm doing, unleashing people from the shackles of the lies and corruption of medicine and big government corporations or big industry in bed with committees and corporations. Again, this is going to be extremely, harsh and rough for people to hear that are on the committee. I'm not making friends in my community, folks. I guarantee you that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do what I feel God's calling me to do, is reveal truth to you and your family members so that you can protect your family members, you can protect your children, you can stay as healthy, you can reach your God-given health potential. That's the only reason I'm fighting this right now. Y'all are downstream of this. People are commenting that they're downstream from this area. Susie, I find it highly ironic that when you take your child to the doctor, they give you a form. I can't read stuff because I don't understand why it's not working to read more longer comments. So I appreciate you. Hopefully, so I appreciate you guys all being online right now, sharing the truth. Don't just like it, because if you're just liking this video and you're not sharing it, I can't reach as many people with the truth. Thus, we can't together, you and I as a team, can't save as many lives as we possibly could. So make sure that you're sharing this information. Laura, appreciate you being on. Thank you for being passionate about spreading the truth, she says. Absolutely. April, we need to vote out those who allow this. I completely agree. So we should get on record those who said it was safe, those who voted it in, and put on record that they will be responsible for harms that come to children and people from lead exposure and illnesses. Women will be suffering with endocrine and hormonal disorders, DNA damage. You look at inflammation and damage, cardiovascular increased risk. Thousands of people will die. Again, summing up what the research says is that thousands of people will die because this is being allowed. We need to pick a very specific location if we're going to put places like this up. I'm not saying we don't need batteries right now. What I'm saying is we better be very, very selective about where we're putting these places and warn everyone, and make places like this invest in tons of land to make sure that they will not be negatively affecting their community members. Putting it directly in the backyard, less than a few hundred yards from some houses, unacceptable, folks, unacceptable. Again, April says shared. April, yes. So again, share the truth. Don't just like it. That's the only way we save lives, and we prevent lions, people like lions that are lying. Again, I just thought that was the funniest thing that just popped in my head. It was funny. It is funny. I mean, his name is Lion, and he was a lion. Public Health Director. Public Health Director. Health and Human Services Director for Michigan lied to people. Yeah. So is the Public Health Department here. They're not telling people the truth. Check out thewilddoc.com to find out more about that. When bringing the truth or telling the truth might get you arrested. Check that article out. Read the emails between me and the Public Health Department official. That one won't be in this link, but again, if you want the link to all the research studies I've discussed here in this video regarding lead exposure and toxicity and problems, TWD in the comments. I love you all. Thank you all for staying tuned. And make sure you share the truth. Don't just like it. That's the only way we're saving lives. Hey everybody, I'm the Wild Doc, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hop on over to thewilddoc.com. Subscribe there for our newsletter and email campaign. Join in the conversation on Facebook, and let's transform the world by unleashing the power of natural healing.
So since I can remember, I think this started on 2010. with pain on my knees. So since then, I started taking a lot ibuprofen. That was all they were giving me, and the pain started, feeling, other parts of my body, and then my back. Sometimes my body was so stiff. I was not able to bend down, and so I was feeling a lot of pain here, and they were giving me, it was an injection. My arms and my hands, they were going numb, so they were waking me up in the middle of the night. Also feeling tired, mostly every day, have no energy, and I was having like pulling in my muscles, and that was painful, burning on my back. I was trying not to, let this condition put me down, but you have good days and bad days. And on those bad days, I was like, I don't want to do anything. And that was making me feel bad, because I know my boys need me, and I'm not able to provide for them what they are asking me for, or just go with the little one and play. And I was reacting, like just leave me alone, or go with your dad. Right. But inside of me, I was like, I do want to do it. It's just that I don't have energy. Last year, 2016, I was diagnosed with lupus. So I ended up taking 5 pills a day, and they were not making me feel good. So then I decided to get a second opinion, and that's when I went to Colombia, and I was diagnosed last year in August with fibromyalgia. And I came to see Dr. Dale. Just within a week, I started feeling much better. Now I am able to sleep and rest, so I wake up in the morning, refreshed, and I have more energy. My arms and hands, they do not go numb during the night. I feel my arms and hands stronger, because before it was even hard for me to hold the phone. Exercising, it was hard. Holding my baby, I was like, I'm feeling like I was going to drop him. So yeah, but right now I feel a lot more strength. And my legs, I don't have that pulling on my arms. I don't have the burning on my back, and my lower back pain is so much better right now. And so when I feel good, then I'm able to go out with my baby and play, and we are doing more stuff in the house or outside, and I'm not that moody anymore. So I feel good, and I don't feel guilty, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So it's definitely, after coming to see Dr. Dale, I noticed big changes in my body and also my actitud.
Yeah.
Bueno, lo que puedo decir es que ha sido un gran alivio recibir el tratamiento con el quiropráctico, y definitivamente lo aconsejo de tratar una medicina alternativa, porque la medicina convencional no me estaba funcionando y sentía que podía dañarme otras partes del cuerpo. Y es recibiendo este tratamiento con el Dr. Dale, mi actitud, mi energía es muchísimo mejor, y se lo recomiendo a cualquier persona que tenga la condición de fibromialgia como yo la tengo. Definitivamente ayuda muchísimo, y es un cambio en la vida. I wanted to share this with everybody like you said, if somebody is suffering from fibromyalgia, because you feel like there is no hope, because people tell you there is no cure for this.
Sure.
And then in your mind it's like, oh, I'm not gonna overcome this. I have to deal with this. But actually, there is hope.
Yeah.
And I found it here, thanks to Dr. Dale and everybody here. So when he told me, if you can share your testimony, I doubted a little bit, but I'm like, no, I do want to share that because I know how it feels, being in pain the whole day, tired, stiff. So I just said, yes, I want to share, and I want other people to feel good as I'm feeling good right now. So.
That's awesome.